In 1991, a woman testified under oath in front of the United States Senate. She was not accused of a crime. She was accused of telling the truth. 14 men sat above her in dark suits. Cameras lined the walls. The country watched in real time. The question in that room was not simply what happened. It was whether she should be believed. The man seated nearby had been nominated to the highest court in the nation, a lifetime appointment, a seat on the Supreme Court. His confirmation seemed inevitable until her name appeared in an FBI report. Her name was Anita Hill, and what she described would divide the country. Clarence Thomas had been nominated by President George H.W. Bush to replace Justice Thurgood Marshall. The confirmation process was already politically charged. Thomas was positioned to become only the second black justice in American history. His approval appeared likely. Then a confidential FBI interview surfaced. In that interview, a former employee alleged that Thomas had made repeated sexually explicit comments to her while she worked under him at the Department of Education and later at the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. The former employee was Anita Hill. She had not gone to the press. She had not held a conference. She had answered questions when federal investigators contacted her. But the report leaked. The confirmation hearings were reopened. When Anita Hill raised her right hand and took the oath, she did so calmly. Her voice did not tremble. Her tone did not escalate. Her testimony was detailed, specific, and restrained. She described conversations in which Thomas allegedly discussed pornography, anatomy, and graphic sexual scenarios in professional settings. She did not embellish. She did not dramatize. She responded directly to each question. The questioning she faced, however, did not begin with the alleged behavior. It began with her. Why had she followed him from one job to another if the harassment was real? Why had she stayed silent until now? Why should the committee believe her? One senator asked whether she was a scorned woman. Another pressed her about the timing of her disclosure. The underlying implication repeated itself. If this happened, why are you here? Every camera angle reinforced the imbalance. 14 male senators elevated above her. One woman seated alone at the witness table. The committee chair at the time was Senator Joe Biden. There were no women on the Judiciary Committee in 1991. Not one female senator questioned her. Millions of Americans watched the hearing live. For many, it was the first time workplace sexual harassment had been discussed openly, in explicit detail, on national television. The term existed in law, but it had not yet entered everyday vocabulary. What Anita Hill described had a legal definition. But culturally, the country was unprepared to process it. Public reaction fractured almost immediately. Some viewers believed her composure signaled credibility. Others interpreted the same composure as calculation. Polls shifted daily. Editorial boards debated whether her allegations were truthful or politically motivated. Then, Clarence Thomas delivered a statement that would reshape the narrative. He called the hearings a high-tech lynching for uppity blacks who in any way deigned to think for themselves. The phrase dominated headlines. The conversation widened beyond harassment. It became about race, power, and political warfare. Hill's testimony was no longer the only focus. The country argued about motive, about strategy, about timing. Her clothing was discussed. Her facial expressions were analyzed. Her past relationships were examined in public. Her professional life narrowed to a single moment in time. After days of testimony, questioning, and debate, the Senate voted. Clarence Thomas was confirmed to the Supreme Court by a margin of 52-48. It was one of the narrowest confirmation votes in modern history. The decision was final. He would serve for life. Anita Hill returned to teaching law, but she did not return to anonymity. In the weeks that followed, she received threats. Security measures were put in place. Her name became permanently linked to the hearings. For some Americans, she was a whistleblower who exposed workplace misconduct at the highest level. For others, she was a participant in partisan politics. She did not frame herself as either. She described what she said happened, and she did so under oath. Something else unfolded after 1991. In 1992, a record number of women ran for and were elected to Congress. Journalists labeled it the Year of the Woman. Many candidates cited the Senate hearings as a turning point. Women watching at home saw an all-male committee interrogate a woman about her experience in the workplace. They saw the power imbalance displayed without disguise. Corporate policies began to shift. Sexual harassment training expanded. Human resources departments revised procedures. The language entered mainstream conversation. The legal structure did not transform overnight, but awareness accelerated. Years later, other public reckonings would follow similar patterns. A woman speaks, institutions respond, the public divides. In 1991, there was no established script for how such a moment would unfold. Anita Hill stood alone. Her testimony did not prevent Clarence Thomas from joining the Supreme Court, but it altered the national vocabulary. The hearings were never solely about one nominee. They became a referendum on credibility and authority. Who is believed when power is on the line. The Senate's role was not to determine criminal guilt, it was to confirm a justice. It confirmed him. But the cultural consequences extended beyond the vote. Millions of viewers heard language on national television that mirrored experiences they had never articulated publicly. The image remains: a woman seated at a table, 14 men positioned above her, a chamber built long before her presence. The imbalance was visible, so was her composure. More than 3 decades later, her name still sparks debate. Some maintain that the evidence was insufficient. Others argue the system protected its nominee. History has not produced unanimous agreement, but it has preserved the record. Anita Hill testified under oath. She did not shout. She did not organize a movement. She did not campaign. She answered questions. The vote confirmed Clarence Thomas. The moment confirmed something else. Workplace conduct would no longer remain entirely unspoken in the halls of power. The hearings did not deliver triumph. They delivered exposure. History recorded the outcome of the vote. It also recorded her voice. Follow and share to bring back the denied women they tried to erase.